With SRN News, I'm Rich Thomason in Washington. Well, maybe we'll soon find out more about 3 of the 4 objects recently shot down by the U.S. military. Senators getting a closed-door briefing today. We'll see what, if anything, they might have to say once the briefing is over. He was not a student. He was not a University of Michigan employee. Police say they have no idea why 43-year-old Anthony McRae opened fire on campus in East Lansing last night, killing 3 students, wounding 5 others, before taking his own life. A U-Haul driver's rampage through the streets of Brooklyn, New York for almost an hour yesterday left 1 person dead, 8 others injured before police put a stop to it.
Police calling it a deadly rampage, not terrorism. The suspect identified as Wang Soor by his son Stephen Soor, who tells the Associated Press his father is mentally ill.
He has a history of this going out of control. He has a mental disorder, I guess you would say.
The 62-year-old who once stabbed his brother has a record. The deadly spree took place in the morning. Witness Catherine Aronova says she saw a delivery person on an e-bike get run over and dragged by the U-Haul. A 44-year-old was killed and 8 other men injured, including 1 police officer. Julie Walker, New York.
Also at srnnews.com, the government's latest consumer price report is out this morning, and the Heritage Foundation's Joel Griffith says that, yes, we still have a problem.
Inflation is tracking nearly 3 times the Fed's target rate of 2%. That core rate, which excludes those volatile items like energy, is still well in excess of 5% year over year.
Nikki Haley has jumped into the race for the Republican presidential nomination, joining former President Trump in that pursuit. Stocks in the red on Wall Street. Right now, the Dow is down 201 points. The NASDAQ, 62 points lower. This is SRN News. The Biden administration turns a blind eye to Nigeria.
Despite bloodletting on a truly horrific scale, the State Department says it will go ahead with its plan to remove Nigeria from its list of countries of particular concern for religious freedom. Even as the decision was made late last year, weekly reports of Muslim terrorists massacring Christians were flowing in, much to the consternation of the international community. There are at least 2 Muslim terror groups on the loose in Nigeria, and the government has failed to bring them to heel. Michael Harrington, SRN News.
Missouri's Republican Attorney General Andrew Bailey wants a transgender medical center to stop medications for minors amid multiple investigations. Bailey says doctors should stop prescribing puberty blockers and hormones to children at the Washington University Transgender Center. A whistleblower reports that minors are put on puberty blockers or hormones unnecessarily or without individualized review. SRN News. Republican Senator Tim Scott said to be nearing an announcement that he is running for president.
Scott has one of the most conservative voting records in the Senate, but as the only black Republican, has also become the go-to point man on issues touching on race. Fellow Republican Senator John Barrasso praises Scott as having what he calls a Ronald Reagan Morning in America hopeful vision for the country. Scott's plans come amid a growing number of contenders who either have or are expected to announce their own campaigns. Among them, former President Trump and former Governor and UN Ambassador Nikki Haley, as well as Florida Governor Ron DeSantis. Bob Agnew reporting.
T-Mobile wireless customers reported widespread service outages in the U.S. late yesterday. That according to a couple of websites that track service interruptions. Once again on Wall Street this hour, stocks are sharply lower. Right now, the Dow down 219 points. More details at srnnews.com.
Utah Valley will be partly sunny today with a high of 30 and a 30% chance of snow. 16 degrees for a low tonight. Partly sunny and 30 again tomorrow, but feeling closer to 5 degrees with the wind chill. Snow likely today in Richfield and Sevier Valley with 1 to 3 inches possible as the temp hovers at 25. Tonight brings a 20% chance of snow with a low of 15. Mostly cloudy and 25 on Wednesday with a 30% chance of a dusting of snow. Low wind chill values continue for Price and Castle Valley. Mostly sunny today with a high of 29 and a low tonight of 12. Partly sunny and 28 tomorrow. And Vernal and the Uinta Basin shows a chance of scattered snow showers for today through tomorrow. Mostly cloudy and 20 today. Blowing snow tonight and tomorrow as gusts could reach 35 miles per hour, contributing to a wind chill value as low as negative 25. Otherwise clearing through the day tomorrow with a high of 13. This is KEYY Provo, KEYR Richfield, KEYP Price, KEYV Vernal. Visit us at keyradio.org.
from the Key Radio Studios in Provo, Utah, and broadcasting live throughout Utah County, Sevier County, South Central Utah, Carbon County, and the Uinta Basin. It's your good friends Mike and Heather in the morning.
Hello, good morning. And yes, I'm going to say it. Yes, I'm going to say it. Happy Valentine's Day. And by the way, if you're looking for a wonderful, wonderful Valentine's Day, I don't know, I would think Bible verse. How about this one? John 3:16. For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whoever believes in him should not perish, but have everlasting life. That, my friend, is one you can bank on. That is one that should just get your heart a-pumping and say, that's how much my Lord loves me. So happy Valentine's Day to you. Mike, how you doing?
I'm doing pretty well.
Yeah?
I got my Valentine's gifts given to me this morning. by
It's the first time I've done that in 10 years.
Yeah, it kind of took me off guard. Now I'm down. I have to come through today with something
that's
big.
the problem. That's the problem. Grant Burkhalter at the controls. We also have Pastor Rudy Rodriguez of Calvary City on a Hill in Provo with us today. So everybody just chime in if you want to. But I didn't mean for it. I didn't mean for this to be some sort of competition like, ha, 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 no, you got to get something for it. That wasn't it at all.
I'm sure. I know that.
I was in the store. I saw Takis and I said, oh, Mike likes those. And I got them. And I thought, oh, Valentine's Day is coming. Let's give it to him. So it's not like I was like, oh, these
and that's
Takis
kind of
remind me of our love.
but
hot and spicy? That's great.
It was a variety.
Variety pack.
Some of them are a little cool.
Yeah. You know what? And it's so nice of Heather because she bought me those Takis because I like them.
Yeah.
But she knows that my stomach doesn't like them. And so she has to hear about it every time I eat them that, oh, my stomach hurts. But
Mike likes Takis, but Takis don't like Mike, right? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, something along that
And
line.
then I wasn't thinking, but I got him this great card. It's a pop-up card. And when you pop it up, it's a bunch of puppies.
You knew exactly what you were doing. I hate glitter. I don't hate a lot of things, but glitter's right up there.
I agree.
It's all this really fine.
Open it up and poof, right in your face.
Really fine red glitter, and Mike opens it up, and I'm like,
Oh, I knew it was there.
Oh.
I could sense it
And
right through the envelope.
It's everywhere.
I knew what she was up
It
to.
was like opening up King Tut's sarcophagus there. It's like right in your face.
So
The curse.
I gave him food that doesn't like him and glitter that he doesn't like. This is a great Valentine's Day. Sorry.
And chocolates, so
So there's that.
yeah.
1 out of 3 isn't bad. Anyway, so there's how it is. And now I'm expecting, I don't know, something I don't like for Valentine's Day. Hey, Heather, here's a can of olives. Happy Valentine's Day.
Yeah. Or
Anyway,
tools.
Tools. I don't I won't let. Anyway, so that was fun. Let's see. What can I say? Oh, first off, let me give you some heads up here on Thursday. If you are in the Spanish Fork area and you want to be a part of a Bible study, 6:30 p.m. to 8 o'clock p.m., why don't you let us know? There is a friend of ours. His name is Pastor Josh Harding, and he is having a Bible study in his home, and you are more than welcome to go to that. That's this Thursday. Just give us I think the best thing is just contact us here at Key Radio. Just mail at keyradio.org or text us at 855-539-4583 or what have you, and we will give you all the information you need. Or you could just go aspenggrovebible@gmail.com and ask specifically for the address or for more information about the study. I can tell you this. Colossians. That's what they're going to be studying, and it's Jesus Sufficient for Life. Colossians, fantastic epistle in the New Testament, and you should just read it. If you're not even going to that, you should just read through it. It's not very long, and it's wonderful.
What does it say about food there? Anything?
Yeah.
Bring your own Takis. I don't know. Doesn't say, Mike. You'll have to email them.
I bet they have
and
some
ask them.
snacks or something.
I'm not
there.
coming unless I get food.
Yeah.
That's how it works, right?
Nothing wrong with that.
There's nothing wrong with that. I know at City on a Hill, you guys are always eating.
Yeah. We do generally on our Wednesday night study. We have I prepare a meal, and so it's a full meal, and it's in keeping with what is said in Acts 2:42, and that's the breaking of bread, and there's something to that. Mm-hmm. And it's a good way to fellowship, and you can enjoy one another and just get to know one another over food. And it's just one of those things that I think God gave us so that we can enjoy and get to know one another, and likes and dislikes and so on and so forth. But it's just, I think, a good way to break sometimes some of the barriers, and people that are new to this, they like, you guys have a whole meal? Yeah, we do.
Yeah. Well, and this is interesting because the fast food industry, I think, has messed up our view on eating. You know, like eating in the Bible, it's like an affair. And if you go to like Europe too, it's like you go to a restaurant, you're there for hours. It's not like hurry up, eat so we can get more customers. It's like, boom, you're there for the long haul. And we're like, hey, I'm going to get it in my car. I'm going to chow it down before I even get to the stoplight. That's kind of how we envision food, but that's not biblical.
Right.
So friends,
That's not biblical.
It's not biblical.
That's a strong statement, Heather.
I'm just saying, think about it. But all throughout the Bible, it's like, you know, like Abraham sees these guys and he's like, whoa, and he's like, stay here. And then he's like, he kills a cow. And that takes a long time to kill a cow, to butcher the cow, then to eat the cow. Well, you got to cook it too.
Yeah.
You know, all of those things, it takes a long time. So he wasn't asking these guys to just hold on for, you know, the 10 minutes or a 30-minute for your pizza or whatever. No, it's like, you're going to be here for a while because I'm going to make you some food. Yeah. And then we're going to eat it and we're going to talk. And I think we need to get back to that beautiful picture of spending time together. And that's what the whole thing is, right?
Yep.
Breaking bread isn't about just eating. It's about spending time with people and getting to know them.
Yeah.
And that's what you do at City on a Hill?
Yeah, and sometimes, you know, the studies get going a little bit late because we start conversing and talking and just enjoying and laughing and sometimes, you know, commiserating or whatever. And it's just another way to, I think, to fellowship as God has called us to do. And so it's just, you know, something that I think is an important part of the whole process. So.
And that's good. We just have to be okay with starting late.
Yeah.
When there's a good reason.
Yeah, sometimes we look up.
But not
like,
on Sunday morning. You wouldn't do that on Sunday morning, though.
On Sunday morning, there are times when we have been known to start a little bit late.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's not, it's, you know,
it's a family, right?
Like 5 minutes late or 10? What are you talking about?
I got a roast in the oven. He doesn't.
Yeah, it just depends.
Yeah.
You know, we've been, I think the latest probably been maybe 10 minutes. Because everybody's running late. We go through the set and do all that stuff and get all the prep work done, and then all that.
10's not bad. We can live with that.
Yeah.
So
we try not
you're
to.
like the official timekeeper, Mike.
Well,
What's
I
going
might
on
be.
with you? And friend, by the way, we're talking about Calvary City on a Hill in Provo, and if you want to know more, you could just go to their website, cityonahillut.org. That's easy to remember, right? Cityonahillut.org. Kind of rhymes, kind of fun, right?
Yeah.
Yep. You can learn all about things like who they're about, and any announcements. You could probably watch your Sunday services live, maybe?
Yeah, you can. And typically they're on YouTube because Facebook has been giving us problems and things like that. And it may be because of the preacher. I don't know, but
it's probably your pro-life stance. You know,
it could be. Yes, and we are very much pro-life. So,
but all that information you can find on their website.
Yeah.
Again, cityonahillut.org. So wonderful. Okay. And by the way, Sunday mornings at what time?
11 o'clock.
11 o'clock.
Yeah.
So, friend, that's maybe a great way to just be introduced to City on a Hill and the people there, and to just kind of get an idea of how they do church life together.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And when I say church life, I mean like actual life in the church, a family, a church family. So, great thing to do. Let's see. Anything else, Mike, that we need to know about before we begin our topic?
No, we can
Or
hit
did
it.
you want to talk about that Harley Davidson? I know.
Oh, I didn't see. I didn't get to the news at all. Sorry.
Really? Okay. Well, this is interesting. A 1908 Harley Davidson. It's a strap tank. So, right?
Mm-hmm.
Sold for $935,000, making it the most expensive, I guess, or high auction. I don't know how to say that stuff. Like just lots of it money.
So what was the number again?
$935,000, like almost $1 million.
Why don't you just round it up? Just round it up to $1 million.
Wait, that's a lot of money, Mike.
It's bragging rights.
Yeah, right?
I could have paid $1 million. But
That's right.
Yeah,
I got a deal.
So what makes it so special? I mean, it's early, but it's still not.
Well, most of it is just because first off, it's really gorgeous. Most of the parts are original, which you don't see very often on a bike that old. And it's interesting because the bike was actually found intact in a Wisconsin barn back in 1941. Some dude decided he's going to keep it in his possession and had it for 66 more years. And then it's like, I should probably get it restored. Sent it down to Indiana. They did a fantastic job. But it is pretty cool. It's a piece of,
Yeah, that's very nice.
history.
Yeah, that was always the dream. Like driving down the backcountry roads, and you just look at all the barns. This is in Wisconsin, and you think, wow, I wonder if there's an old car or an old bike in one of those. And I did stumble upon at one point a guy. I was out servicing these little mailbox type things that you put the free shoppers in.
Oh, yeah.
I was out replacing those, and I got talking with a guy when I was replacing one in front of his house, and he showed me his barn full of old. Oh, it was just a mixture of things, of old motorcycles from the 30s up into the 50s, Harleys and different things. So it was pretty cool, and they were all covered with dust and dirty, and they were like. Somebody got a nice barn find.
Yeah.
I went back looking for it a few times. I couldn't remember where I was.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
It's like a weird Twilight Zone kind of thing.
It was the one who got away.
I made it back and talked to the guy a couple more times, but then I didn't go for a couple years or 3 years, and I forgot where it was.
Oh, that's so sad. Well, maybe this is the
Yeah, right. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
Oh, anyway, it's just cool. A little piece of Americana, and it's just fun stuff.
Thanks for bringing that to us, Heather.
Yeah, I'm there. See, I'm there for you. I'm there for you. Okay, friend, we're going to talk about something that you would not expect us to really bring up during Valentine's Day, but I think that this is a very good topic, and we need to talk about it because we don't really talk about it, and that is singleness. Right? And I'm thinking, and you're like, what? This is Valentine's Day. But let's face it, friend, there's many of us who are single. And then Valentine's Day comes and it's like, ugh, right? Here's another one. Or it's wedding season and you're just like, got another wedding to go to. And you're just really upset about just that. It's not like you're upset about it, but it's just, or you go. The worst is, you go to a family function and then you get, Aunt Gertrude and she's like, so... do you got any gals in your life that or I'm going to set you up with my friend, whatever. And anyway, and you're just like, oh, this is like, you're just tired of hearing it. You're tired of it.
Grant, any
How
thoughts?
about you, Grant? Mike?
You tired of hearing it?
Yeah, Mike is my Aunt Gertrude.
And it gets a little bit, it gets a little frustrating, right? Because it's like, you're like, I don't know. I just think that sometimes we need to settle down a little bit and really just discuss about it. And there are many good reasons why people are not married. But the problem is a lot of the singles that I talk to, sometimes they question their value, right? Their worth. They question, well, maybe I'm not pretty enough, or I'm not smart enough, or I'm not, buff enough, or whatever. And we need to talk about this, because sometimes, friend, like most of the time, like maybe all the time, it's really not about you. And I want to talk about this because you are loved. And if you are single, you need to know that you are loved. We have 2 single people here in the studio with us, and I think this is a great opportunity for us to just grab this thing and wrestle it down. Maybe take a few punches. Let's
on this day, Valentine's Day.
Exactly. Why not? Why not? But before we begin, let's just start by let's identify the different types of singleness, because when we talk about singleness, a lot of times we think about the person who's never been married. And that's one.
Yeah.
That's one. But there are many different types. And I think especially the marrieds who just kind of go off and a little oblivious to the world, let's kind of identify some of those other categories, if you will.
Yeah. So, well, some of them might be widowers and widows whose spouses have already passed away. And so a lot of them, they're just kind of in that weird place because that was part of their life, and now it's not.
And depending on how soon or how recent that loss would have been, they could be still grieving, right?
Yeah, yeah. And so there's those who have also been in abusive relationships, and they're single, and they're hopefully working on stuff and counseling with people sometimes is difficult, but it's also very gratifying because you're able to let them know, hey, just because that happened in our tendency and our human emotions that get involved with all that, sometimes our self-worth and our image of ourself and things like that can be damaged or wounded, and to be able to get that person back to the right thinking that was totally on the abuser, not on me. It wasn't that issue. So there's those who are single in that respect, and then there's those who find themselves in a place where they never wanted to be, and they're divorced. And in my case, it's been 25 years. Since I've been in a relationship with a significant other, and singleness is one of the things that because we're talking about it. Sometimes it can seem to people as if it's a curse, if in every one of those instances, whether they've never been married, they can be thinking, and they want to have Genesis, and that's where the institution of marriage is brought forth in God's, created order. And he sets the boundaries, one man, one woman for life. He says, here's what I've created. And so you have people that are sometimes struggle with the idea of singleness, and a lot of the times they beat themselves up because of it. But Paul, he was single, so far as we know. If he had a wife, he never talks about it, and so we're not exactly sure. But he sounds like he, and I know that some scholars have in commentaries, some of them guess that he might have been married because he was a priest, or not a priest, but a Pharisee. Mm-hmm. And maybe the unbelieving spouse just couldn't buy into it or whatever. But he found himself in a place where he ended up alone, but he wasn't alone. Mm-hmm. And so there's those types of singleness that does occur in life. Sometimes it's for those who are searching. Let me just say that if God has I think he's put that in most of our hearts, that we're relational. Mm-hmm. Women more so, obviously, but men are too, and we relate differently, obviously. But I think it's one of the things that on days like today, it can be, if we're focused on it, it can be distracting, it can be hurtful, it can be all those things. But one of the things that was weird when thinking about when you sent me the email and the subject and everything, one of the things that I thought of was a Zach Williams song.
Okay. Yeah.
And the reason I wanted to bring that up, he's got a song, it's called Looking for You. Mm-hmm. And the lyrics are basically, he says, when he says all the times that let me pull this up real quick here.
Yeah, I'm looking it up right now too. Okay.
He says all the times that I worked hard because I believed that life could have meaning through things I achieved. And sometimes when we find ourselves in that singleness, our focus is not where it should be. I think it was Augustine. I think that said that all of us have this emptiness within our souls or our heart. I think he said, until Christ fulfills it, and he fills that hole. And that's kind of what this song does. Is it he's got this idea when he's writing this song. He worked hard because he believed that life could have meaning through things he achieved. And I think for men in particular, that is true. We think the more that we achieve, the more arrived we are, right? This focus on this car that I've been wanting to rebuild, or this project that I've been wanting to do, and when I'm done, it's like, yeah. But that's I think God has made us with a need of fulfillment, and when we're looking in the wrong place, it can cause all different kinds of problems. And Paul, in Corinthians chapter 7, he talks about this very specific thing. And there it was in times of distress, because you think about the history of it. The people, this new religion, what people thought was a new religion, which really wasn't. It was really in the Old Testament all along. But you had this new thing happening, and you had these governmental imposers that imposed themselves upon this new religion. And there was paganism. There was all these things that were happening. And so the people of the faith, at the time was called the Way, this Christianity, they were being persecuted. So that's the backdrop of what he's talking about. And he says, if you find yourself, when you get saved, because that's really the kind of, says if you find yourself in a certain position, if you're a slave, remain a slave. Don't try to set yourself free and all that stuff. You've been set free. Just trust God. And so he goes through all these different circumstances. And this song, he says all the things that he thought he could achieve. That's what gave life meaning. And it's singleness is not necessarily a thing that is that should be looked at as a curse, because it. But I was single until then, right? And so you spend a good part of your life just growing, and God does put this thing in our hearts that we want to have that partner.
Yep. I want to kind of dig a little deeper into that too, because there is an attack on all of us, right? We have an enemy, and believer, I'm talking to you today too, especially, but we have an enemy. His name is Satan, and he hates you, okay? He absolutely hates you, and therefore, because he's your enemy, he wants you to be unhappy, discontent, angry at God, whatever it's going to take, right? He hates a content single person, right? And so just in general, he will use whatever it takes to get you to that place of discontent, right? So whether that's you're looking at a television commercial and you're like, oh, look at all those. So whether that's you're looking at a television commercial and you're like, oh, look at all those romantic people and I wish it were me. He's planting these seeds of discontent, right? And we need to be very, very careful about it. But it could be self-doubt. He could plant seeds of self-doubt. So first you got this like, wait a minute, okay, now everybody else on the planet is kind of, coupled up except for me. And then they'll be like, oh, but I'm not good enough or I'm not smart enough. Maybe if I just, go to the gym more, then more people will like me or whatever it is. So he'll start planting these seeds of self-doubt, or he'll plant seeds of, let's say, God doubt, right? Where it's like, maybe God doesn't love me.
Right.
Can we dig a little deeper into that? Because I think we're swallowing a lot of the world's lies.
Yeah. Well, the world is doing a lot right now. And it's doing a lot of damage to these relationships. It does a lot of damage through marriage and through the family by allowing it to be redefined. When this is one of the things that I preach from the pulpit all the time, is when a society becomes more and more secular, the further away from God, in other words, the further away from God you get, the more and more you have all these redefining, and essentially society and the people in power playing God. They don't get to redefine things. And as Christians, that's a hard thing. And right now, one of the things that it's not only an attack on the biblical idea of what marriage is, the traditional family of a husband, a wife, and their children. They're not only doing that, they're tearing down the idea of what they can't even define what a woman is anymore. And as far as they're concerned, men are toxic. But what does that do? That attacks immediately what God has decreed from his created order. This is what he's put forth, and this is how things are. And some people are uncomfortable with that, and they don't like that because their mindset and their eyes, their focus, everything is like you were saying, the world inundating, and they're allowing that, and it's creeping into the church as well. Feminism has been one of the most detrimental thing to women. It's been anything but feminine, and it's destroyed femininity because people think that it was the idea of empowering women, and you see it all the time. You see it all around you, and I don't know if little boys really pay attention to it. I think they do, because I remember thinking about things as a boy, and even though my mind was engaged in other things, you would see something or hear something, and you'd like, that's odd. And then you just go on about your business. But, the idea of maleness and what a man is being attacked. The idea of what a woman is and what her expectations are being attacked. And that is the tool of the enemy. And he does so by removing God from the whole picture. Don't worry about what God says. Here's what really matters. And so with society bringing in all this nonsense and perversion, it's what it is, it adds fuel to the fire. It makes it even tougher. Sometimes I see on social media videos where groups of men and women are talking, and what they have bought into, it's like you're never going to be satisfied, because you have all these expectations that are unreal, that they're just not going to happen. And especially the older that you get, the way that you're thinking about things, because you've bought into the world rather than into what God has said.
So what you're saying is we need to stop focusing on ourselves, and we have to stop focusing on the so-called truths that are really lies that the world is throwing at us. Instead, we really need to go back to what we mentioned earlier with the best Valentine's Day verse on the planet, and that is that God so loved the world. How did he love the world? He gave his only begotten Son, that
Correct.
Whoever believes in him should not perish but have everlasting life. And so everything that Pastor Rudy is talking about right now, friend, I mean, the perversion of God's word and everything, that's just a blatant sin. We're embracing sin. We're embracing the lies, and the lies about ourselves too, right? Yeah. It's the lies about your self-worth. Now, we are not worthy of God's love because we're sinners, and yet God places great value on us because we are created in his image. But there is this issue, friend, and maybe you're struggling with that right now. I mean, if you were going back to that Zach Williams song, you could say, like in there, he's like, you know what? You knew I was looking for you. He's referring to Jesus there. Jesus, I know it's true. All of my life, I was looking for you. It starts right there. You need to start really focusing, not on the world, but you really need to start focusing on the Lord and what he says about you, about your identity in him. And friend, this is really the foundation for all relationships, period. So let's talk about the foundation of all relationships. Again, starting with the whole John 3:16. Why is it important that we have a solid relationship with the Lord?
Right. Well, because that's where we will find our ultimate fulfillment. The Shorter Westminster Catechism, what is the chief end of man? Really speaking about what will fulfill a person. And, whether it's a man or a woman, it's the idea that it's to glorify God. In other words, he is the center. He's the center of your life, and to enjoy him forever. It's a great thing.
And I love to say, enjoy him forever.
I love that. Yeah, that's the thing that, growing up in a Christian home, I didn't get a lot of that kind of teaching. And when I came across that and like, nobody ever told me that I could do that. And that's part of, I think, what fulfills is understanding that there is a God who is holy and perfect in all of his ways. He's perfect in power. He's perfect in justice. He's perfect in love. He's perfect in
wrath.
In wrath. He's perfect in love. He's perfect in mercy, and everything that he is, not just what he does, but everything that he is perfection. And going back to this song, he says, every time I thought romance might fill up the hole, that an incomplete feeling still ached in my soul. And I think sometimes when we're single, and even some married folk feel this, because we've bought into the lie that if I just find this right person, my whole life will be fulfilled. And it's like that is a I'm going to say something that probably be controversial, but that's kind of a demonic demand that you've put on somebody. That man is going to fulfill you. That woman is going to fulfill you. That's a lie. No one can fulfill what it is that we need except for God, who loved a fallen world. He loved. He is love, and he is the essence of what love is, and love begins with him. And we can't even really know love apart from God. And so, and I think that's one of the ways in which we are created in the image of God, is our ability to love in spite of people's flaws. And one of the things that I've used, and I learned a long time ago, is when a person is in a relationship, one of the things that I tell people is like, romance is nice and everything. It's great. And I'm kind of a romantic, but the idea of love is really choice. You choose to devote yourself to that person despite their flaws. And you come to know more and more of their flaws. But regardless of all that, you choose to do that. That is a picture of what God does. Because he knows us. He knows our worst crimes against him. He knows our worst thoughts that run through our mind. He knows all of those things. And still, knowing that, he says, I choose to love you. But, you know, and there's nothing about us that he should love when you really think about it. And you know, going back to John 3:16, for God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whoever believes in him should not perish but have everlasting life. Not only does he love, he says, not only do I love you, I want you to be with me forever. And that is, you know, that is justification. That is justifying us before himself through the cross because he loves us. And the many of the struggles that people have is they're trying to fulfill their lives in many other different ways. And you know, going back to the societal problems, they're telling women that, you know, what matters most is your career. Get your career, you know, do all this stuff. And a lot of people, when they do studies on it, the secular world are puzzled when they do studies and they find women in their 30s who just quit their jobs, go find a man, a husband, or not, and have a child, because that's more fulfilling. And when they're asked, why would you do this? Like, well, this is what I want. This is what I desire. And this makes me more fulfilled than having, you know, some name on some door and a desk and all this stuff. It's because that's the way God made us. He made us differently.
Yeah, we're actually replacing relationship with other things, or the things that and you're not saying that a woman with a career is a bad thing, but it's just saying that it gets so much and she's missing something. It could be for a man as well. But even with relationships, we are created for relationship, but primarily that relationship is with God.
Yes.
He is the only one who will complete you. Mike, I mean, maybe I've said it to you in the past that you complete me, but that would be a lie, right? Because the fact of it is only Jesus completes you. He is the one who actually fills you to overflowing, right? He's the one who enables us to love rightly. Yeah. He's the one that enables us to be patient and to be generous with our lives. And so, friend, today, before we get like caught up on the romance stuff, right? We need to really let God romance us, if you will, in that. And I'm not being weird about it. What I'm saying is He's already given everything for you. He's right there in front of you right now. And you need to look at him and just say, look what you have done, Lord. You have died for me. I don't know anybody who's done that. Right. And why? Because you want this relationship with me, and you paid for the sin that I really deserve to pay for with my eternity, right? Where I suffer for that forever. But you've taken that away. You've endured that wrath that I deserve. And why? Just so I can love you forever and delight in you, and to glorify you. That's a beautiful thing. Yeah. And friend, start there. Today is that day of salvation. Trust in that's the other thing. He's done it all.
Mm-hmm.
Like, did you hear anything? All you've done is sinned, but he's done it all. I think that's fantastic. So what must you do? Just love him, believe in him, trust in him, and you will be saved. Wow.
Yeah.
That's a beautiful, that is the ultimate love right there.
Right.
Now, friend, having known that and having heard this, and we got the self-doubt and addressing our singleness, here's the thing. I want to get to the theology of this because I'm afraid we'll run out of time, and I really want to hammer home on this one today.
Okay.
Some people are lamenting their single status, right? Because we are made for relationship.
Yeah.
And some of us, people will say, well, maybe I'm just called for, I'm called to singleness. Well, let's just set that one aside for a minute. Like, if we have time, we'll talk about that. But those of us who have a lot of pain because of our singleness, we sometimes come to this conclusion that there must be a sin in our lives, or it's about my sin. And that's the reason why God is withholding this gift of marriage, right? And instead, he's just making me wallow in my singleness where I'm going to be lonely forever until I figure out what the sin is.
Right.
I think we need to stop that bad thinking. And I was going to ask you if that's bad thinking. I've already determined it is bad thinking. What is wrong with this theology?
Well, the problem with it is that although we are created to be what we are, singleness is not a curse. Right. It's not. It's nowhere found in the Bible that singleness is a curse that I can think of. I've never come across it. And when it comes to our relationship with God, for those who are unbelievers, it would be a little bit different. And but when it comes to singleness, it's not a curse. And there are I do believe that God does have a significant other, a spouse or what have you for us. But I also believe that part of when we enter into a relationship with God, if he's not the center of it, if he's not the most important thing, we will never find that fulfillment. And I think that I've actually counseled with somebody and said that, you're so focused on trying to make this relationship happen. And you've even gone so far, and I had to, reprove and just say, I can't let you go there. This isn't God doesn't love you. So you need to knock that nonsense off. That's
and we can go biblically for that. If you are a believer in Jesus Christ,
right.
You can go to Romans. Therefore, there is now no condemnation for those of us who are in Christ Jesus.
Right. And he's not punishing you. It's just, sometimes it's it could be just a slew of things. But the theology of it is that God has created us for relationship, but primarily it's a relationship between us and him. And that's where we'll find joy and peace and happiness and all the things that fulfill us. And, on one level, when you say, you complete me, if you go back to Genesis 2, it's kind of what's going on there. Like God says, it's not good for man to be alone. So he makes a woman for the man. And that's a good thing. So on a horizontal, level or a human level in our existence and our reality, it is one of those things where, there is a completeness in that sense when you find that person that you seem to click with. And it doesn't mean, usually it's not somebody who has the same exact views. It's usually somebody who has many opposite views. But there's something about that relationship. And so the idea that the people that wallow in the pain, sometimes it's self-inflicted. And it's your perspective is all wrong. You're so focused on this one thing, and as I've said to some people, it's you're if you only focus on this, you're not allowing God to be that fulfillment. And maybe it's God saying, look, once you're satisfied with me, then you'll back off and all of a sudden this person will come into your life.
That doesn't always happen.
No, it doesn't always happen.
Right.
And sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. And I think one of the things that I learned early on, one of my former pastors, he sat and counseled with me, and it was basically like this. He drew kind of a picture of a stovetop, with the burners. And he just asked a real simple question. And to me, it was really profound. It was in the time of my pain when I was going through this separation and all this stuff. He drew a timeline. He drew that stove. He says, if God brings you back together, say 5 years or 7 years from down the road, where do you want God in your life? Do you want him on the front burner of the stove in your life, or do you want him on the back burner? And which one do you think, depending on, if he doesn't fulfill that in 7 years, which one do you think is going to allow you to grow and mature in him more? And it was profound for me because I had to really think about it. And I took the drawing, and I remember it was around Thanksgiving time, way back when. This was back in 98, I think, 98 or 99. And, as I thought about that, I had to really just kind of clear everything out. And I remember I told my mom, I said, Mom, please don't think that I'm not happy being here. My mind is focused right now. And I'm digging through this whole thing, and I'm having to deal with this. And what I was doing was, where do I want God? Do I want him on the front burner of my life, or do I want to put him on the back and put a relationship and seeking all these things? Do I want that first? And I had to really decide for myself, what do I want? Not just what's best for me. I mean, that was obvious. It's like, what do I really want? And the next time we met, after the following week, said, well, I've really thought about it all this time, and I want God on the front burner of my life. And if I put him there and keep him there, whether or not we're reconciled, whether or not I find somebody, whether or not that's there, many years down the road, I'm going to be much healthier, mentally, psychologically, emotionally, but most importantly, spiritually. And that's what I found my fulfillment in, is that putting all the stuff aside, and it is work to remove all that stuff, because you're in a, it was Thanksgiving time, and I love my parents, and I love my family, and I loved spending time with them. But it's like, I'm just so focused, I'm distracted, and I apologize about that, but I've really got this profound thing. I got to work through this. And I think that for people who are single, sometimes we have to really set aside all that stuff. Get away from our girlfriends and boyfriends and all their advice, because sometimes it's terrible advice. Sometimes it's like the friends of Job.
Yeah, right.
Hey, we're here to help you. How can we make you feel worse? It's like sometimes you got to get away, and you have to really be introspective and really decide, what is it that I want, and am I going to be satisfied with this? And for me, it was, I need God.
And I'm glad that you said that. Friend, if you just joined us, you're listening to Mike and Heather in the morning on Key Radio, Life Unlocked, Truth Unleashed. Grant Burkhalter is at the controls this morning, and we have Pastor Rudy Rodriguez of Calvary City on a Hill in Provo with us, and we're talking about singleness on I was going to say Thanksgiving. I'm like, it's Thanksgiving Day every day for the Christian.
Yeah.
But I'm glad you said that about, it's not, you didn't put religion on the front burner. Right? You put God there. And that is a huge mistake many people make, is like, I'm trying to I don't know, make the pain go away. So I'm going to replace this part of my life with another activity or another hobby or another, and you can replace the pain or try to deaden the pain by trying to put religion on the front burner, but that will burn you out, right? It has to be the person of Jesus Christ, our God and Savior and Lord, who is the fulfillment of all things and who can truly fulfill that aching need in our heart.
Right. Yeah. Sometimes what people do is I'm going to show God that he's first by doing stuff. I'm going to do all this stuff for God. Busyness sometimes gets in it gets in the way of that relationship. We have that story with Martha and Mary. And Martha's busy doing all this stuff, fussing all around, and Mary, she just goes and sits at his feet, listens to what he has to say. And the bigger picture of that story between the two is Martha's doing stuff to please him. She's busy with all these things. Mary set all the stuff aside and just wants to be in his presence and just wants to, she's not even thinking, I don't even think she's thinking about pleasing or anything. She just wants to be there and be in his presence. And of course, Jesus, says, hey, Martha, you fuss about much. She did the better thing, just being and being satisfied with that and not trying to do all these things. Sometimes all those activities get in the way of our relationship with God. And when you for the single, hey, here's where it gets, here's the good part. You have time to focus. You have more time. Sometimes you have too much time, and that's dangerous, and that's a whole nother subject for another day. But you have time that you can actually devote yourself to God, not just doing things, but building that relationship and putting all these other things aside. And you have for instance, like last night, I would not be good, especially if I didn't call and say, hey, I'm going to be gone all day, And so where our devotions are divided, and they have to be. When you're married, you have the devotion that you want for God, but you also have to devote time for yourself. And if you have kids, that's even complicated even more. And for both sexes, it's different distractions. But for the single, you don't have that. So if I'm gone all day and ministering to people and doing whatever, and I don't get home till 10 o'clock, I don't have to worry about, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to hurt you, or I didn't mean not to call, I just forgot, or whatever. And that happens. And so for the single, you have time that you can actually devote, not just doing stuff, but just spending time with him. And sometimes I find that when if I did have a spouse, more than likely she would have been there with me praying, especially at someone more my age. Kids are grown up and things like that, and so I would, it would have been different. But the single person, as Paul says here in 1 Corinthians 7, he talks about this, that you don't have your devotions split up, and it's not a bad thing, because God created us for man and woman to be together, one man, one woman for life, and he created that, and it's sacred. That's why marriage is sacred. And that's why it's wrong and it's wicked for judges and courts to be deciding things about marriage. It's like, no, God has already established this. Let's move on. But here, the person can devote themselves more to God, and again, not just doing things. That can be a hang-up, but just devoting yourself, just having the time to, I have time to do this. I can set aside more time. And I don't have to worry about dividing my time, being distracted.
I'm going to ask you a personal question, and you, it's always dangerous.
Well, don't do that.
Well, no, I can't.
Don't put him on the spot.
You're a single man, and you've been single for a long time, and there are many singles who are really struggling right now. Are you content where you're at?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And
25 years.
25 years. But it was a journey for you.
It was. Yeah.
And was it easy for you to get to this point?
No, it wasn't always easy. One of the things that helped me was to set aside. In my instance, things happened with the marriage to cause it to break up. And when we got married, we were not believers. Far from it. We were partiers. We were woo, more beer, more drinking, more partying. And when I was saved back in '96, my life changed. It drastically changed, and I understood why that was kind of scary and repulsive and all that other stuff. It just, I had become this other person. And it was true. I had become really another person. And when the marriage broke up, I had to decide, look, as a Christian, what does God think about marriage? How does he feel? He says it. I hate divorce.
Mm-hmm.
I hate it. And the word there in the Hebrew means hate. I hate it. Right?
No question there.
I hate it. And it's simple. I hate divorce because that's not what he intended. And Jesus speaks about that in Matthew chapter 19. And he says, what God has put together, let no one put asunder. So I had to decide for myself. In my case, we stayed separated probably until about 2015. And I did have Christian friends say, hey, come over to our house. We've got, people coming over and there's some women and so on. I said, I'm separated, but I'm still married.
Mm-hmm.
And I made a decision for myself. What does it mean to me? I want to think about it like God does. And it's sacred. And he said, even though I was an unbeliever, when I was there in that church, got married, I said, till death do us part. Biblically, I had the grounds, the 3 grounds that there are for divorce, I had them. But I wanted to see that as what God saw, and I began to see it as this is a sacred thing, and therefore I'm just going to put that on the back burner.
Mm-hmm.
And it still is there, and it's not to say that I wouldn't like to be married. I would love to be married. Mm-hmm. I would love to have a spouse. I would love to be able to come home to a house that somebody's there.
And you're apologizing because you're late. It's 10 o'clock and dinner was burnt. Yeah, sure.
and I would love that, but it's not the thing that is on the front burner of my life.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not very good at keeping God on the front burner of my life.
Mm-hmm.
Don't get me wrong. I've got plenty of flaws, but what I learned was to be content with God and to be content with that relationship that He just unfolds in my life on a daily basis,
mm-hmm.
and learn to just trust in Him more for that. And that doesn't mean that there aren't times of loneliness and desire and wanting just somebody there just to be there.
Mm-hmm. A companion.
Yeah, not just, not even, the talking and back and forth and the things and sharing. I'm just talking about somebody physically being there because that's how God created us. And so that's one of the things that has worked out in my life. But the main thing is just trusting that God is enough.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a lot of work to get that set in your mind so your psyche is not dealing with but I want this. It's like, no, God, you have to make that an established fact in your life.
Mm-hmm.
And you got to keep it there. And that I had the fortune of having that time with this pastor just making this simple illustration. And to me, it was very profound, and it made sense to me. It's like, yeah, if I go 10 or 15 years and nothing's happened and I'm still like this, am I going to be better off if I keep God in the front or if I put Him in the back? And I really had to think about that. And it really put things in perspective for me because I want Him in the front always. Mm-hmm. I want.
So the spouse goes in the back burner or the second front burner?
Stop. Oh, our time flew so fast, and there's so much more to talk about. And so in the next couple of days, we'll continue this conversation. I think it's worth it because I think there's just a lot of weird stigma. I think there's a lot of lies. And mm-hmm. Number one, if you got anything today, singleness is not a curse. God is not mad at you. And friend, we need to be content in the Lord, mm-hmm. But the Lord loves you. And so trust in Him. And we're going to continue on with this, like I said, for the next couple of days. Pastor Rudy, how again do we connect with you and City on a Hill?
Sunday mornings at 105.
Full conversation. And dear friend, thank you so much for spending time with us today.